Buenos dias. Just after 8 o'clock or 8:15 in the morning. Once again, a case of being up and awake. So getting up an hour and ahead here as well. So the equivalent of what I did yesterday. Still the sun coming up, but it looks lovely here. I must say, it's a nice little place, this. Nice atmosphere. What I was saying yesterday, that if I'd have been walking without having booked things, I probably would have carried on, but I'd have missed out on a nice little town, actually. Quite like picturesque, with all the coloured houses and everything in the background, but a really nice sort of family community vibe. I said yesterday about the guys sitting around chatting away, as they do in lots of Spanish and Mediterranean countries, but in the evening after the siesta, the traditional paseo happened along here, along this walkway right along the river and into town as well, where everybody comes out and goes for a stroll and meets up with their friends, young and old. Some of the old boys sort of struggling along with their sticks and everything, but they go out there and they do it every single day, and well played to them. Not too far today, talking about those miscalculations or misreading of books or whatever it was yesterday. So I reckon I've only got about 3 hours walking, if that. We'll see, could be wrong, might be more. And everybody seems to be disappointed in a way. I was chatting to a couple of German ladies in a bar last night, actually. I think that you're talking to women at all. Yeah, I know it is like that. And they spoke far better English than I spoke German, as you imagine. Unfortunately, that's the way it is, isn't it, with us Brits. One of them came from Frankfurt and one from Munich, and they said the same. That they thought, oh, is that it? And I did actually bump into Norma and Scott and his wife, who I've met before, and another American lady from Arizona. And everyone was saying they also, the German ladies took exactly the same route as me, and sort of thought, oh, okay, oh, that's it. And everyone's saying the same thing. It's a lot shorter than the guidebooks suggest, but as I said, it was a nice walk and it was a good day. And as I said, the couple, one of the American couple, Scott and his wife, I think her name's Hazel, I can't remember, they come from Iowa and they've walked the South Downs way, so they know Eastbourne, they know, oh dear, and they also walked Hadrian's Wall, the walk along there as well. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't done those. I've done bits of them. We were discussing the relative merits of the Seven Sisters, especially when they did it, and it was actually blowing a gale up there, and it wasn't a lot of fun. But anyway, I know what that's like. So yes, I chatted with them, and I had a lovely meal yesterday. I think I mentioned a place that I pointed out, and I went in there and I had a monkfish and prawn stew, which had mussels in it as well. Absolutely gorgeous it was. It wasn't particularly cheap. It's 24 euros, which over here isn't that cheap, but well worth it, every single cent, I tell you. Possibly apart from the sardines that myself and Julie had, because they were so fresh. It was a nice occasion, all that. That was possibly the best meal I've had. Really, really nice. Set me up for the day. That's probably the way I'll do things here, because of the way that they eat in Spain. They have their lunch at I had it at 1 o'clock, but that was early. And so that's probably what I'll do, is get to a place and have my main meal, such as it is, sort of fairly early on. But what I wanted to, coming out that nice little harbour, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, I mentioned yesterday about all the different routes into Santiago, and when you get there, you get what they call the Compostela, the certificate that's in Latin. But there are three versions, there are two versions of that, because to do that you have to say, to get the official one, if you know what I mean, the Latin inscribed one, with all the religious terminology, etc. I can't remember what it says. You have to say that you either did your pilgrimage for either religious reasons or for spiritual reasons. Now, I would be lying if I said I was doing it for religious reasons, and I wouldn't be prepared to say that. That's not fair, I don't think. But certainly spiritual reasons, I certainly get that. But if you don't subscribe to either of those, they will only give you what they call a certificate of distance. Great, it tells you, it shows you exactly how far you've come and all that type of thing, but not quite the same. But to get that, you have to have what they call a credential, which is effectively the pilgrim's passport. I'll put some photos up of what they look like, so I'm going to dig it out of my pocket at the moment. And you collect them. I got mine at Porto Cathedral, official document, costs €3. And what you do, very much like a passport, you get stamps in your passport as you go along from the hotels, places, albergues that you might stay in, restaurants, cafes, bars, churches. Got one in the church yesterday here. So lots of different places will give you a stamp. The bloke on the boat yesterday, when I jumped in the boat to come across the river, first thing he said to me was, "Do you want a stamp?" I thought, "Oh, yeah, okay." And then he put the date on it. And the idea is that you're supposed to get one per day for every day that you walk, but that isn't that important. I've been getting 2 or 3 because they're nice to look at, as you'll see. But for the last 100 kilometres, you have to get at least 2 stamps per day. They're not hard to come by because that's obviously is their way of knowing how far you've walked and the fact that you've walked on certain days, because they date them, or if they don't date them, you can date them as well. So that is quite a good thing to collect in its own way. So as I think I said about some people probably don't bother getting a certificate once they get to the end, especially if they've done more than one. But I think what I would do if I did another one, which is quite possible, is that I would just get the credential, get all the stamps, because they look really good. Anyway, I'm heading over there. I'm expecting today the walking, apparently it's sort of fairly remote, although it's an official path. Not many services, as they say. You won't find many cafes or anything like that today, but it looks as though, and as you can see, the terrain's changed slightly, so it looks as though it's going to be a different day. And once again, I'm quite surprised there is no one about. I'm beating the crowds once again. Maybe I'm just too eager to get into it. Anyway, I'm sure I should speak to you on the way. Buenos dias. I'll show you some of the early morning scenery around there. I'll just say actually about meeting those German ladies yesterday, and in the course of our conversation we were saying that, and I said to them, I said I've seen, I think, more women walking this Camino, the Portuguese route, since I've left Porto than men. And I said, no, it's so good to see, especially lots of single women. And they said that that's almost officially recognised, that they've noticed that as well. And I would say 60-40 women to men on this route, which is tremendous. I think that's really good, especially a lot of the female women that are doing it. Whether it's because I don't know what it's like on the French route, or any of the other routes, but I don't think they're the same in that respect. Whether this is a more populated route, because, you know, you've got the little towns and everything like this dotted around, whereas I understand the French route can certainly get very remote and wooded and whatever as well. So there's that sort of safety aspect, which obviously you're going to be worried about. I mean, I think about it as well, but obviously for a woman it can be a lot worse potentially. So there you go, another little snapshot. So that's my excuse for why most of the people I end up talking to are women. But yeah, nice. Heading off round that headland there, I think, as I said, I think that's pretty much the flavour for the day. You hear bees buzzing, birds singing. And after that last little comment that I made about the majority of people being women on this trip, everyone I've seen so far, and I just bumped into a few people, they're all men, and including one guy that myself and Julie saw at, I'll carry on doing this, it's nicer, is it, looking at me, at Porto Cathedral, and he looks like, if you drew a picture of a pilgrim, you know, he's pretty much what he'd look like, sort of weather beaten, with a hat and a big staff with shells attached to it which jangle, and he really looks the part. And we saw him then. I've seen him around a few times, and I just met him just around the corner, took a photo of him. I'll put the photo actually in here somewhere. And and sort of, just, passing the time of day. And he's Italian, and it got me thinking about all the nationalities, because at the same time a group of German guys came along, because there's a statue of a pilgrim, which is probably in the photos, and so they wanted me to take photos of them standing by it. Fair enough, did that. And I was just thinking that I've heard several English-speaking voices, Australians, Canadians, Irish, but I don't think I've actually met another British person. Isn't that weird? I say Germans, Dutch, lots of Germans, Dutch, Italians, obviously, and Portuguese, Spanish, Polish girls, met some Polish girls the other day at a cafe. Romania, I think there's some, all over the place, but I don't knowingly think that I've seen or met any English people. Isn't that strange? Maybe I'm the only one here flying the flag, if only I was, which I'm not. And that's how you can identify lots of people, actually, because they actually put flags or something on their rucksacks, packs, identifying where they come from. Actually, Julie did me some pom-poms. Maybe I shall put that on the photo as well. And there's 3 pom-poms, one with the Spanish flag on it, or Spanish colours, one with the Portuguese colours, and one with the UK colours, but that doesn't come out quite the same as the others because of the nature of the Union Jack. Anyway, I'm going to carry on, keep walking. Now walking through some lovely woodland. Actually started off on the headlands, which was very nice, and then we ended up coming up and walking next to a road, plenty of room, and now coming to this lovely forested area. You can hear the sea down there. Sun's still coming up over the hills. It's only just getting above. I lathered myself up with sun cream and everything. But funny, it's about wildlife and then along the way, and noticing all these things, which I think is one of the things that I've noticed that some people, they seem to be so wrapped up in getting to the destination, whether that be their next port of call or to Santiago itself, that just about everything else pales into insignificance, and they don't really take as much notice as their surroundings as maybe they should. But for me, this is partly one of the reasons that I did this. I was discussing the other day that I can't remember, but I'm thinking about it, as I go along. I think, well, actually, and one of them was to embrace the nature and everything that you see, the coastline, obviously, but all the different scenery. I say all the birds and insects and animals generally that I see. And funny enough, lovely little spot up there, and just stopped and took 5 minutes, and I hear this bird. It sounded like a bird, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting sort of bird song. So I've got an app on the phone, so I get the app out, and it said there was a European serin, and I thought, well, nice looking yellow sort of bird. I thought, I can't see it, and I walked along a bit further. I thought, that's getting louder. So I went up on this little bank, still couldn't see it. Before I mention it, I see these markers here that all the way along here, they count down to how many kilometres are left to Santiago. And here we're 155.690, very accurate. So nearly 150 kilometres to go to Santiago. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, I climbed up on this little bank to look for this bird. And there in front of me was a water pool. So what I was hearing weren't birds at all, they're bloody toads. Dear, oh dear. There you go. Anyway, so you learn something new every day, don't you? I know what a European serin sounds like now in the distance, but the one in the foreground was definitely a toad. Anyway, here we go. Carry on. I don't know if you could make out that photo that I just put up. Hopefully it came out. Just gone under 150 kilometres left to go to get to Santiago. So that means that over the past, well, did I say this was day 7? I can't remember. That I've actually walked enough distance to qualify for a Compostela, which, you know, that wouldn't work, but if you see what I mean, because of all the stamps, etc, etc. But I've walked that distance, a minimum of 100 kilometres, so I've walked about, I suppose, about 120. But that also means, I'm sure you're ahead of me here, that I'm not even halfway there yet. So if you'd have asked me last Friday, when I got to this sort of point, 150 kilometres to go and getting close to the halfway point, how I wanted to feel, you know, mentally, physically, etc, I would say pretty much exactly as I feel now. So I'm very pleased. You know, there's that whole trepidation thing that I keep talking about. You know, for anybody who does this, even if you've done it before, any of those sort of big challenges, I talked about marathons, anything like that, you're never quite sure how you're going to, you know, sort of match up to it, whether your body's going to hold out, whether your brain's going to hold out, whether it's going to be what you thought it was going to be in the first place. And it has. It's certainly has so far. So very, very good. And very appropriately enough, there's a big golden Buddha over there, very serene. So that's how I feel at the moment, actually. I'm having a little chapel. I must have show you this as we're going past it. But little chapels everywhere. Coming down, actually, I think I'm coming down into Oya, where I'm staying. There's a tiny little chapel here. Look, actually, I'm going to turn this round and show you. There we are, it's a lovely little chapel in the middle of nowhere, and it's open. You go in, just, yeah, look, lovely. What if I do a stamp? I do. See, look, this is what you have to get. One of these. It's a stamp, and you can see what it does. Places birds in here as well. And the smell of the candles, lovely. Well, here we are. I've arrived in Oya, O-I-A. Only done about 7 miles today. Once again, it's one of those things that we thought was a lot more than that. And a lot of the people that I met yesterday, the couple from Iowa, the lady from, where's she from? Arizona, and I know Norma's here as well, all staying in the same place. And I got in, came in, and I think, yeah, it's shut. There is not a lot going on, but there's a lovely monastery up there which I knew about. And it's a lovely little picturesque place, but it's very, very quiet at the moment. Hopefully it's going to liven up. I'm going to have a little wander around in a minute. But another one of those little, well, say fishing places. They've got fishing boats behind me here. But a lovely walk, once again, a lovely walk today along the coast. And I must say, I mean, I keep saying it, I know whichever part I'm in, but now I'm in Spain, now I'm in Galicia. I'd heard that Galicia was supposed to be very nice and picturesque. It's very green, as you can see, and as you probably noticed throughout the day and even yesterday as well. And that's because they get quite a lot of rain here. Being on the Atlantic coast, I know they've had some bad storms over the winter here, which is probably quite normal. And obviously we had that rain the other day, which isn't unusual even at this time of year. So it keeps it green, but it's got it's a very agricultural, almost sort of British sort of feel to it in a weird sort of way, but obviously with the sun and the warmth, because there's a breeze off the sea, and they do get quite windy here sometimes, but it's a lovely little spot. And as I say, the countryside, I stopped earlier on and had a coffee in a place full of pilgrims, one of those places that just pops up and you think, oh well, oh right, okay, lovely. And you look at the coastline there and you thought, this is really nice, with the little hamlets as they are as you were walking along, agricultural land, etc. But well, there were small holdings, I suppose, almost allotments, I suppose they are. So very, very nice indeed. And I certainly like to come back and maybe explore a little bit more. Maybe I'll walk it and just stop in different places. Maybe that's the way to do it. Anyway, I'm going to have a wander around and see if I can find anywhere that is open apart from the monastery. Speak to you again later. Bye.